Okay guys, welcome to the final review of Gundam Code Fairy. This is volume 3, the final volume out of 3 that has finally dropped. And I gotta say, after playing through the first 2 volumes, I was so ready to get into this one. Now, Gundam Code Fairy has had a really amazing story. Let's just recap to how we got up to here. Volume 1, Code Fairy started out as a K-On! Style cute girls doing cute crap anime, but with the twist that it was all taking place inside of Gundam's One-Year War, a futuristic bloody World War III analog where the girls lived and trained under female ace pilot Kelly Gallet in their luxurious Utah mansion, a mobile suit base called Tira Nog. The girls rose through the ranks to become ace Zaku pilots, kind of like the Black Tri-Stars with that kind of like teamwork thing going on, and thankfully around the end of Volume 1, going into Volume 2, the tone got way more serious and everything turned into a very typical Gundam anime with a kind of Gundam 0080 sort of tone. All while the main character gets put into a coma by a psychotic, rabid cyber new type psycho bitch named Lilith who's just all screaming and scary, and her 2 buddies Helena and Maya end up bettering themselves into an ace sniper and an ace engineer respectively. And so by the end of Volume 2, the girls are rocking customized prototype Zeon death machines, and then finally in Volume 3 the shit really hits the fan because Zeon has effectively lost the One-Year War and abandoned them all to fight off in space, so now the girls are stuck on Earth in pure survival mode, road tripping across the United States, trying not to get killed every day as the war drags on, and every day things get worse and worse for them. Now I thought in this volume things might go all the way terrible like V Gundam, like it might get super dark, like I thought they might all die of scurvy or something really awful like some other sad anime film, but thankfully it balances out to a pretty teenager-friendly PG-13 level of depression. If you guys are completely new here and you just want to know if the game is good or not, please refer to my review of Volume 1 because at this point we're 2 volumes deep and I can tell you this game is awesome! I love this game, the story's great, the character's great, I'm just full on vibing on it. But this is my 3rd and final review and I'm mostly focusing on the 3rd and final volume now, but I will also do an overall review of the overall package at this point. Now, on a bright note, since all 3 games culminated together in this one, I had 3 games worth of items and experience at this point, so I went into this volume feeling really overpowered. Combine that with the high-spec performance of the Titania, I had a really smooth run going through this one. So this game was actually super easy for me this time around, and I only had real problems on the final mission, so I was able to get way more into the story than the other volumes. So with that out of the way, let's break down each chapter. Starting with Chapter 11. So in Chapter 11, Tira Nog, the girls' mansion, falls. They finally lose the place where they've been living peacefully this entire year, and in a bit of an internal scandal, it turns out that Commander Barbara was a double agent working for both the Cassilia and Giran Zabi factions of the Zabi family. Initially, she was just giving Giran intel about the Fairy Unit, but when the Fairy Unit started succeeding hard and being awesome, she was giving orders to sabotage them. In this case, the sabotage involved that she leaked the location of the girls' mansion to the Feddies, and she set a time bomb in it to kill everyone afterwards. But since she's come clean about this and told everyone what she was doing, the girls now get to cleverly reorganize the sabotage into a military triumph. So the girls know now that the Federation is coming to kill them, so they prepare a massive landmine field leading up to the mansion. And in a fun bit of pre-planning, there was an extra mission at the end of Volume 2 where Alma had to defend the mansion, and this stage uses the same map, so that extra mission was pretty much a practice run for this stage. And because I'd already memorized the map in that stage, I had a really easy time completing this stage. Now, in this chapter, we were introduced to a new set of bad guys for the final volume, the Federation Black Dog Squadron, who are a group of extremely unethical bad guy GM pilots who would fit right into the Titans during Zeta. Luckily though, between the booby traps and the time bombs, they end up getting roasted to hell trying to take over Tira Nog, and the Fairy Girls get away clean. After that is Chapter 12. In Chapter 12, the girls arrive at the luxurious California base, the best defended Zeon base in North America. And they arrive there in the first week of December near the end of the One-Year War. Anyway, so there's a really easy mission here. It was barely tricky. You just have to protect a piece of crap Zaku cannon while it loads boxes onto the Gal. It's not hard at all, but the first time I ran through it, I failed to concentrate on the Zaku cannon hard enough, and I got nuked by Doms. I was really distracted watching a YouTube video about the Virtual Boy, sue me, Anyway, the big twist in this mission is that the girls actually get betrayed mid-mission by an entire platoon of Zaku's who were apparently loyal to the Black Dog GM team, and they were offered plea bargains in some kind of clemency to turn their backs on the girls at the end of the war. So these guys are all trying to backstab the girls, but the girls are just too good. And since these guys are all using outdated goofs and Zaku's, the girls demolish them easily. Now, the Black Dog Squadron shows up in another ambush attack at this point. They got the better of me the first time as well, but I realized that if I just give the girls a little bit of space to work with, they actually handle this one pretty well because the terrain in this stage is so mountainous, and the GMs just don't handle that very well. In Chapter 13, California Base falls. God damn, we just got here. Okay, so Code Fairy is definitely giving me a real fine look at the final days of the collapse of the North American Zeon front, and that alone is worth the price of admission. Also, at the same time as all this is going on, Race Car Zaku Cannon guy shows up and rejoins the girls for a little bit. The girls start out making a Christmas tree because it's Christmas, go figure. And in a fun Easter egg throwback, they run into the main characters from Zeonic Front, which is just a nice little Easter egg that warms my PS2 playing heart. Super deep PS2 callback, so I appreciated that. I played Zeonic Front, like when I was 14. So anyway, Chapter 13 is another base defense mission where you just protect the last Gao as it prepares to launch from the base and evacuate survivors. And then the fairy team's fat uncle also gets targeted as it's playing a supporter role. Now you have to deal with a bunch of cannon fodder GMs and some gun cans, but I thought the stage was incredibly easily and I coasted through it very, very fast. The only hard part of this mission was actually the training exercise, which was a mock combat simulator between Alma and Helena against Mia and Zaku Cannon Bro. Zaku Cannon Bro is actually super weak, but he cheats by being on top of a 3-story building that's very difficult to climb. Mia's Dom Gomez seems like it's going to be easy to take down, but that thing is actually a literal tank. It has a ton of firepower too, and I only survived against it by being very evasive and hitting running against it. Now, Chapter 14 leads into the first part of the girls being on the land in the American heartland, and we get some explanative backstory that Alma's not a new type, she's just very socially awkward, and she spent a large portion of her childhood at the Flanagan Institute because people thought she was a new type. However, she failed all her new type tests, so instead she just racked up excessive time playing a mobile suit simulator, and that's how she became an ace pilot. Go figure, it was video games. So she starts off doing another mop-up mission in this one, but it ends up being a shocking final battle against Lilith and her red pixie custom. And you're never gonna believe it, that bitch got off drugs. Like seriously, she got her shit together, she got her diploma, she went back to high school, she went to a hair salon. What the fuck happened to her? Where's that drooling savage gorilla woman I spent 2 games humiliating? I have never seen a cyber new type in all of Gundam history walk back the crazy, so I'm shocked there. Now, that being said, considering the crazy fight with Lilith at the Pixie Custom in Volume 2 was a complete joke, this fight here with Sane Lilith in Volume 3 ends up being a quite good deal harder. Now, she's not a nightmare like she was in Volume 1, but it did take 100% of my focus to stop her, which was a good change of pace, I guess, after a series of easy missions. So then we go to Chapter 15, which seems to be the last chapter. So the girls are still on the lam somewhere in western Tennessee trying to get to Cape Canaveral after escaping California base. Anyway, so this is a mission in the fog, and it actually goes really well since the fog jams up the GMs you're fighting, so that makes this one probably the easiest mission in the game. Now, at the end of this mission, you have a final battle with the Black Dog Squadron and their brand new custom Gundam. On top of that, you also have to fight the finalized and fully upgraded Black and White Riders. Now, the White Rider is a complete fucking joke. Whoever designed this thing, it just looks ridiculous. It looks more like a king than a Gundam, and it's definitely style over substance because it was a piece of crap and we kicked its ass. The Black Rider, meanwhile, this time actually got a pretty good makeover and it can actually fight pretty well. But as with last time, it's very weak because it's a stealth unit, so even though it's invincible, a few shots will take it down. Lastly, there's the Black Dog Gundam. This is pretty easy to fight too, since it depends on the 2 riders to back it up, and if you take them out first, then it's got no defenses. Now, once you get through all of them, there's a plot development that the Black Dog Gundam is being piloted by this scumbag kid named Renato, who tries to get the Black Rider pilot to kamikaze himself to kill the girls, but the Black Rider pilot refuses because fuck that, and they end up fighting with each other until they fall off a cliff, and it's kind of funny, and it's a fitting death to an asshole like that. Alma has a nightmare, which is implied to maybe not be a new type vision, that Killy Gallet died escaping California base. So in the end, the girls finally get to Cape Canaveral, and the game ends with them awkwardly sitting around on some boxes, chilling next to like a box of potatoes, just waiting around for the war to end. What? Nah, I'm just kidding. That's not it. There's one more chapter. They couldn't end it like that. So the final chapter is a nightmare. The final chapter is absolutely the hardest chapter in all 3 volumes of the game. So in the final chapter, the girls decide to make a final stand at Cape Canaveral. And despite the fact that Cape Canaveral is a spaceport, they've run out of spaceships to get up to space, so they're stuck there. So in a very annoying string of events, Mia and Helena end up getting benched, and they end up having their mobile suits used as anti-aircraft artillery guns. So meanwhile, Alma has to, on her own, defeat an entire platoon of Federation mobile suits, just rampaging in, trying to kill all the girls over and over and over again in the literal last minutes of the 1-year war. Literally, about 10 minutes into this mission, Zeon surrenders, and then you still have to fight another 5 minutes after the war is over, because these fucking Fetty scum are war criminals and they just want to keep going. So this ends up being the most brutal mission in the entire game, because you're only playing as Alma, and the game's team combat system just absolutely falls apart whenever you're on your own. Even though the Titania is a really good mobile suit, it's just not that good. And because Mia and Helena are benched in a place where they act as artillery support, technically if you can lure anyone close to them, they might take a shot at them, but for the most part they're useless. So you kind of just have to keep running around like crazy, because Mia and Helena are like only useful in like a 1-block vicinity of where they're sitting. So on top of that, since you're in Florida, you're getting bombarded with an army of underwater rag GMs and even a single submarine Gundam. So that was kind of interesting to see. Wasn't expecting that one. So this mission is manageable until the very end. So at the end of the mission, a bunch of GM strikers came out, and then like next thing I know, there were like 10 fucking GMs chasing me around for like the last 5 minutes of the war. Like at the end of the mission, to survive all these forces, because Zeon surrendered, you still have to survive 5 minutes of just pure onslaught. And making matters worse, during this onslaught phase, you just have to trick all these GMs that are like coming after you, while Mia and Helena are providing absolute minimum air raid support. Now, one thing I tried doing was I tried to parade the GMs around a city block straight into the air raid burst, which is what the game wanted me to do. But by the time I managed to pull that off, like with these advanced guerrilla tactics, I got a time over failure. In fact, a lot of times when I was playing the stage, I got time over failure. Like, I ended up trying this mission over and over and over again, but it was frustrating because I wasn't dying from being shot down, I was dying via time over, which is super frustrating because to die of time over, you have to waste 15 minutes on every attempt. So finally, I just stopped and realized that I could replay the earlier stages on both normal and hard difficulty, level up the girls a little bit more, and I could also unlock some more frivolous crap items to help with the stages. So I ended up replaying a bunch of random missions, which were kind of great to replay through now that I had all the final skills and upgrades from Volume 3. I actually ironically ended up finding the super easy missions from Volume 1 challenging for the first time, since I didn't have access to the upgrades I got used to in the later volumes in those. Now, I didn't make any progress in the missions involving taking low damage though, because my gameplay style was just kind of rush in, get shot, and stab people in the chest. Honestly, I guess I still wasn't leveled up enough to tank through those. Anyway, finally, after doing like a whole night of that, Alma eventually hit level 11, and I had run out of stages that I felt like replaying enjoyably, so I finally went back to the final stage. And when I went back to the final stage, there was a slight difference in power that was noticeable. On top of that, the Titania kept the Gelgu Jaeger beam machine gun that it was awarded in the last stage through any of the stages I replayed. And initially I had a really hard time using that because it was kind of glitchy and weird to handle. But eventually I adapted to it since I'd had some time to practice with it. But what really ended up being my saving grace in the final stage was on the second run I did, it wasn't just the fact that I'd like leveled up by like 1 or 2 levels, but I realized that the map has this weird tiny little island on like the north side of it that you can only reach by walking over this highway, and you need to visit it at least once to kill this annoyingly stubborn gun tank that just camps out there and never leaves. I realized that the gun tank was causing the time over problem because nothing new will spawn at a certain point until the gun tank was killed, and I was wasting a lot of time walking over to the island to kill it. So on my second playthrough, when I went over to the island and killed the gun tank, I ended up getting stuck there because I couldn't get back over the highway because all the GMs would shoot me. But that actually ended up working to my advantage because since the highway was so narrow, it ended up working as a bottleneck, and I was able to use it to create splash damage and kill large swaths of GM trying to fit through this very narrow hallway. As a result of the highway bottleneck, I ended up not having the problem I had previously had in my first playthrough, where I had to parade like 10 GMs at once through a bunch of Mia's traps, and instead I was able to just easily pick them off as they got stuck in the bottleneck at a much more breathable pace, and that's how I eventually got the win in the last stage. Now, of course it wasn't all easy. I still only finished with about a minute to spare, since in the last minutes of the war, a final Nightmare MS team of 0081 GM Streamlines attacked me too. But they actually weren't that bad, they just had really high defense, but there was only 3 of them, so it was manageable. In the end, non-crazy Lilith showed up one more time to arrest Alma, and they end up having a loop on the third Zenigata thing where I'm not gonna kill you, you're not gonna kill me. And her best buddy, who I'm gonna call Vegan Terry Sanders, calls out that anyone who's still been fighting the war 5 minutes after it ended is a war criminal. So at this point, all the other GMs start standing down. But this is especially pointed at the Black Dog Gundam pilot, who shows up alive one more time to just try and kill Alma again. But everyone yells at him, so he stops. Anyway, so in the end, there's actually a happy ending epilogue where all the girls get captured alive and deported back to Side 3, where it seems like they grew up and had completely normal lives by all accounts. I was really super excited to see post-war Side 3, but they don't spend a ton of time there. Now, unfortunately, you don't get an epilogue from Mia and Helena, so I just gotta hope that, since they were so awesome, hopefully they come back in a sequel or some other game in the future. Anyway, the ending takes place, I want to say, about 3 years after the 1 Year War, because Alma's in it and she looks a lot bigger, she looks taller, she looks older. Anyway, Alma gets a postcard from Killy saying that she escaped California base and is living it up in Nazi-sympathizing Argentina. Ugh. What the fuck, game? You spend 3 volumes trying to make it okay that these girls are the heroes of Zeon, fighting against rabid dog Federation cyber new types, murders war criminals like the Black Dog Squadron, and then you gotta drop the old, oh hey, by the way, their mom/teacher figured survived the war by using that old hide the Nazis in Argentina trick, because the Zeon are fundamentally Nazi coded. Ugh, what a fucking punch in the nuts. Go to hell, game. Anyway, whatever, these girls did nothing wrong except for, I guess, all the people they killed, but hey, it's a war, that's allowed. There are also 2 final extra missions, one where the girls have a showdown against the GM Blue Destiny number 1, which hilariously, they almost kill the crap out of it, and it ends up running away. There's also a final extra mission where you play as sober Lilith again, who at an indeterminate time in the story of Volume 3 gets betrayed by the Black Dog Squad, so she ends up killing several of them in self-defense. This mission was pretty hard because her Pixie Kai takes some adjusting to, and it's another stage where you have to play by yourself, but the Pixie Kai is at least a melee powerhouse that can kill a GM in like 2 to 3 shots, so it's really just a survival game to get close enough to make the kill without getting shot. And in the end, that's Gundam Code Fairy. A really enjoyable experience, if I'm being honest. Like, Code Fairy ruled. Solid 9 out of 10 Gundam game. Not the best Gundam game ever, but a definite fun experience with some really fun stories, amazing anime cutscenes, cool characters, cute girls, fun new units. Plus, the fact that the whole game was set in America was kind of nice since I'm an American. I don't know, I felt like, hey, go America. Go conquer it, girls. Go conquer America for Zeon, you girls, with your Zakurs. Like, my biggest gripe is that I just wish the combat had been a little bit easier, since it becomes really unbearable in any stage where you don't have all 3 girls. And yeah, the shooting's a little bit hard to handle. I was used to it since I played GB2 already, but I realized that without having GB2 to get used to the controls, I guess that's kind of like a little bit of a hard thing to get used to, but they do have all those boring training missions, so I guess it's not terrible. Anyway, I love the story. I was happy that like the girls like had like such like deeply developed story arcs. My only gripe was that I was kind of shocked that none of the characters died. I thought that they might like kill off one of the girls to like tug at your heartstrings, and I was really shocked that none of the villains died. Like, especially that complete scumbag Renato. Like, he seemed like he died. He got like a completely morally justified death that I was okay with, but that turned out to be a fake out death because he showed up alive again a day later. And if I'm being real, I was a little bit let down by the epilogue just because I wanted more details about what happened to the girls after the war. But I'm super hopeful that since Code Fairy is being so well received, that the girls survived in some fine capacity, and hopefully they'll return someday. As it is, this game is actually doing so well in Japan that it's actually getting a supplemental manga that I think is just going to cover the story for anyone who doesn't want to play the game. So, you know, all story, no game. Way to go. Anyway, I'm thinking that hopefully the story of the Noisy Fairies isn't over yet, because since Gundam Battle Operation 2 did go into 0083 and then Zeta, Double Zeta, and CCA, maybe we'll get a direct sequel where the girls just come back in Zeta era and they're AU now, or maybe we'll even get them like as adults in like CCA. That would be pretty nuts, but I would actually be pretty down for that. Other than that, I actually hope that they come back in like another anime or something, because I like these girls. I would not mind seeing them again. Like, they all had like really, really nice like repertoire. They all had like interesting stories, and since I spent so much time with them, yeah, I kind of care about them. So anyway, that's Code Fairy. It's a good game. If you guys want to play it and you got a PS5, you should. Alright, so hopefully this is the last time I talk about Code Fairy, unless they end up later having like a crossover with another Gundam game, or God forbid they make like a full anime or like a sequel, or you know, some kind of follow-up, because it is being really well received. All the girls are really popular. So we'll see what happens with them. I don't think we've seen the last of Team Noisy Fairy yet, so just keep looking out there. Maybe you'll see them again someday. By the way, I completely forgot to bring it up in any of my previous 3 videos, but I think it is weird as hell that they gave the girls like custom Zeon like slippers. I mean, I guess it's because they're at home, but like, really? Zeon slippers? Too weird. Or maybe they're just socks. Anyway, they're weird. Alright, I'm you, Buster Green. I talk about Gundam pretty much every week, so if you guys like Gundam, you'll like my channel. Please subscribe. I am 264 subscribers, I think, from getting monetized. And if I get monetized, then this is my full-time job, and I don't have to do anything else in my life, so that would be cool. Alright, thank you guys. I am out there. Later.